Now, our last discussion, we were talking about art for art's sake versus art for life's sake versus artistic urgency. This term, artistic urgency, is something I like to shine my own halo about because I think I made it up, the term itself, however it does appear if you do a Google search. But anyway, I guess I'm a primary proponent of this idea that you have no business, that is, artists, writers, creators, we have no business making art and literature unless we have a point to it. Not just,
Oh, look at me. I can make pretty art and pretty pictures and pretty words just because I'm cute.
no. We got to have a point behind art. We got to motivate your readers to do something, think something, feel something, believe something, right? Now, this moves nicely into my late great mentor and friend, Navarre Scott Momaday. He is a Kiowa. He is now up in heaven watching us and laughing at me, particularly because I'm always making a fool of myself. But never mind. His years are 1934 to 2024. He is a writer primarily, but his mom was also a writer. His dad was a painter, and he inherited both of their talents when he was a little boy. His parents moved to the Arizona, New Mexico Pueblo country, where those reses down there, hot country, because I believe he was born in Oklahoma, but his parents took him over there to the hot, dry desert because they were teachers, you see. Anyway, on one of their vacations, they went up to Devil's Tower. I hate that term. I put it in quotes, Devil's Tower. Remind me to tell you the story, at least from my tribe. Different tribes have different stories of Devil's Tower. We call it Father's Love Stone in my tribe. But that's another story. We'll get to it another time. His parents took him there to that wonderful tower. You probably have no idea what I'm talking about, do you? All right, I'm going to put it up on the board. Doom, 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 doom. Bum, 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 bum. Let's type it in. Hang on while I put the microphone down. Oops. Question. By the way, you're probably too young to remember that song. It comes from a certain movie which we don't have time to talk about, but if you've been, I believe it's in Wyoming, Devil's Tower National Monument. You can actually see this from I-90 when you're driving along. It's way off in the distance, but this is a huge stone. Some people call it a giant tree stump. Maybe it's where the creator sat when he was electing who is going to be the chieftain of the birds. But never mind, we don't have time for that. This is Devil's Tower, as I was telling you. We're going to go back to our lecture where it says Taiwan 大学, but we know. Here he goes. His parents took him here as a little boy, and the people there gave him the name Rock Tree Boy because they thought it was awesome. He thought it was awesome, and he kind of, that was the, you know how we natives, we like to give people names, okay? I'm talking too much. He went on, as he grew up, he got his BA in English Literature at the University of New Mexico. Then he went to Stanford. I believe that my hero, that is Du Huawei, Harvey DeMars, actually met him back when he was a student. That's Harvey DeMars was a student, and he went to Stanford to visit some famous native writers. And he told me that he actually heckled Momaday because he believed that Momaday was one of those academic Indians. You know what I mean. We'll get into that in a minute. Now, what do we know about Momaday? Well, Momaday wrote Housemaid of Dawn, The Way to Rainy Mountain, The Ancient Child, and a bunch of other awesome books. I've got the three that I first mentioned right here. I was particularly impressed with The Way to Rainy Mountain. However, we've got Housemaid of Dawn, which earned him kudos and a Pulitzer Prize for literature. This one came out first. I believe it came out in He says right there, 1968, Housemaid of Dawn. I might have mentioned this in the previous lecture. I got to hurry up and get this done quickly. That is, Housemaid of Dawn is very similar to Leslie Marmon Silko's Ceremony in that both books deal with Native soldiers going off enlisting in the army or whatever, the service, fighting in World War II, coming home with severe PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, something like that, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, I believe. Shell shock is what they used to call it in the old days. Anyway, the hero of this book, his name is Abel, just like Cain and Abel of the Bible. Abel, he comes home and he's got terrible, terrible culture shock, and the only thing that helps him to overcome and to heal is a good ceremony and some good stories. We don't have time to read it right now. He also wrote Way to Rainy Mountain. This book's only like 78 pages long. Let me see. It is, nope, I was wrong, 89 pages long. Way to Rainy Mountain. What is particularly impressive about his work is that it is groundbreaking. He specialized in oral tradition because he grew up as a traditional native with his parents, but his parents, being educators, dragged him around all over the place, but they still never stopped telling him stories and teaching him his ways. The Kiowa people. He grew up among Navajo, but he still learned his Kiowa stuff, and this also helped him, being an outsider and an insider, sort of like some crazy Potawatomi Indian living here on Sisseton, Wahpeton, Oyate. But we won't go there. We got to stay focused on this. What is his impact? Well, those two books were groundbreaking, you see, because most non-native, the Chmokmanuk, the Washichu, they were so used to reading 21 Dead White Men and Emily Dickinson, as I'm always complaining, as you see. And then suddenly this Indian guy comes along, and he publishes a couple of books and a kind of a memoir kind of book, and it totally blows their mind. And plus, it's the 1960s when everybody's all like, free love and free sex, and ooh, we got to open up our minds to weird drugs and weird new ways. And never mind, I'm starting to get crazy and smoking and eating whatever those weird things are. I don't know what people did. Mushrooms and peyote and stuff. People were experimenting, you see, with new ways of thinking. So he came out at a perfect time. New ways of thinking, a new style of book where he's combining the oral tradition with the literary. And that's why the way he did it, oral tradition brought into literary form, it helped to spur the Native American Renaissance. I'll give you a good definition of that later. But the short definition that I can give you right now, Native American Renaissance, is this idea where suddenly the world became aware of Native American writers. Woo! And it opened the door to other writers, such as, where are they? Right. As I mentioned, Harjo, Joy Harjo, Leslie Marmon Silko, James Welch. This is the first wave, I should say, might even be a second wave, but at least for Native American Renaissance, the rebirth, the rediscovery of Native art and culture. Let's say, Momaday is the one who opened the door, and then all these other writers came and marched right in, and people were like, wow, man, check it out. Ooh, far out, man. Cool, radical. I put on here, Momaday didn't just write a couple of great books. He opened doors. His work proved that Native stories belong in the literary canon, inspiring generations of indigenous writers to reclaim their narratives and share them with the world. So these are the old gangsters, the old OGs of the Native American Renaissance. We'll talk about it some more when we meet again, but I just wanted to harmonize this idea Remember what we were mentioning before in part 2 of our lecture, where we were looking at Daniel Heath Justice telling us that, well, you lose something when you move from the oral tradition and you put stuff in words and stick it in a book, because you're isolated when you're reading. You got to be quiet and by yourself. And he harmonized that. He was the first, kind of one of the few native writers to actually start this idea of, let's have native writer poetry slams, which Sherman Alexie, my old buddy, got really good at. And these writers would get together, and audiences would get together, and they'd read their works, and everybody would go, ooh, ah. So it's a performative action, an oral tradition. It's on the paper, but it's a combination of the oral tradition and the literary tradition. He's the one, for natives anyway, that really did an awesome job of harmonizing that. It says here, his writing oftentimes contains a reverence for the natural world, because remember, when you're stuck out in the boonies, especially in the desert, your mind tends to wander and you get philosophical. Maybe it's dehydration. I don't know. Or maybe it's actually spirituality. I'm not here to tell you what to think. That's you. Now, he did a very peaceful braid of myth, history, and memoir. I added the word peaceful because all of his work, when you read it, your heart feels at peace when you read Momaday's work. We already talked about that. How are we doing on time? We're probably already done.